Coming. Coming. John Mark.
Please, Mary, I need to speak with you.
Oh, of course, come in. May I fix you a cup of tea?
No, thank you. I'm here for more than just casual conversation.
Well, then you will have my undivided attention. Please, sit.
No, thank you. I don't think I could. Too much on my mind. Moving, walking, pacing around a bit helps me think. It drives my mother crazy. Will you please sit still for just a minute so I can catch a glimpse of you, she will tell me. But I can't help it. I seem to think better this way.
Well, then, pace all you like. But if you don't mind, I think I will give these weary bones of mine a rest. It's hard to concentrate on serious matters when your feet are aching. Often it seems that trivial and mundane always have a louder voice than more serious matters. The little day-to-day issues seem to fuss about you like a hungry child crying for a biscuit, when what you are trying to do is fix a somewhat healthy tea.
Yes, it's those little annoyances that snip at my heels as I'm running the race that makes me stumble more than once before I reach the finish line. Is that it? Is it the little things that bring us down, that make us stumble, or our focus on them, our obsession with them? My mother will tell me, don't worry about that. Don't let it distract you. Just kick it out of the way and keep running. But it's not that easy.
Perhaps God designed it that way, to give us a bit of distraction from time to time from those larger issues that might drive us to despair, like the cross.
I wish I could be more single-minded. I wish I could be more like Jesus.
What do you mean?
The cross. His single-mindedness towards the cross. It's almost as if that was Jesus' goal, his finish line. When I look back on this week, not just his death, but the process of it all, he didn't let anything keep him from the cross. Why? I've heard him speak. I've heard him teach. I've seen him take on the most learned Pharisees, intent on nothing less than destroying Jesus, and stop them with nothing but his words. Surely Jesus could have persuaded Pilate. Pilate didn't want to do this. He wanted Jesus to go free. Why else would he have tried to release him? But the crowds, the people stirred up by the same Pharisees Jesus had out-taught, outwitted, and outloved time and time again, would not stop. Surely Jesus could have reasoned with Pilate, given him a reason not to follow through with the crucifixion. But he didn't. Why?
That is a question only he can answer. You said you came to see me. What possible advice can I give to a young man who is so animated?
Your son Jesus, is what I'm hearing true? Is the tomb empty? Is the body gone? Did some of the women really see him, speak to him? Is he really alive, like Lazarus?
Young man, you are asking all the same questions I've been asking since I first heard myself. I'm glad you're here. Perhaps together we can make sense of this puzzle. A puzzle I have been trying to figure out since I was a young girl. I don't know if the puzzle is really that complicated, or if I'm just having a hard time accepting the simplicity of it.
What puzzle?
When I was not very much older than you, I was visited by an angel of the Lord.
Like Abraham and Jacob and Gideon.
Well, I never thought of it that way before, but yes. And if it was the same angel, and his words to our forefathers prove faithful, then I know I can trust his promises to me now, even though the circumstances right now don't seem to affirm them.
What promises?
The birth of Jesus. No, it was much more than that, because that part came true. It was the purpose of his birth, the fulfillment of God's promises I'm having trouble making sense of.
What did he say?
First, he told me not to be afraid. And then he told me that I had found favor with God. I didn't know what to make of that. I was no one special. Just a simple girl, no different from any other girl in my village. But now I know. The fact that I had found favor with God had nothing to do with anything I had done, but everything to do with who God is. His favor was given to me, not earned.
Yes, of course. That's what Jesus was all about. The favor he gave to others, the ones he touched, the ones he healed, the ones he freed from demons, that was given, not earned. Perhaps that is why the Pharisees and priests didn't know what to do with him, except to kill him.
And that is my great puzzle, as well as my sorrow. The angel said, Jesus will be the greatest among men. The Lord, he will be called the Son of the Most High. God will give him the throne of David, and he will rule over Jacob's family forever. I believe those promises, the way our people have been taught. The Messiah, a liberator to free us from the Romans. And my logic said, if he would rule forever, he would live forever. He didn't have an earthly father. His father was Jehovah God. Somehow, I never thought he would be touched by death. But as I watched Jesus die on that cross, I not only lost my son, I began to think that God's promises had lost their power. And if his promises could lose their power, did that mean that he could lose his power? Oh, what wayward paths our minds wander down when we take our eyes off of the offer of life, when we try to measure time through our own limited understanding of those little things that nip at our heels, as you say, that demand our attention, demand our focus from the most important thing in life, what God is doing right here, right now.
And what is that?
God's redemption of his people. And if Jesus is alive...
So was the cross his goal? Did Jesus know that all the time? Is that what he was praying about when they arrested him?
Is what Jesus was praying about? What pieces of this puzzle do you hold?
I was there the night he was arrested.
And you haven't told this to anyone because?
Of what I did or didn't do.
Will you tell me, please?
I knew Jesus and the disciples were in Jerusalem having their Passover together. News like that, the way Jesus told the disciples to find a place to celebrate Passover, is fodder for the gossips in town. It isn't kept secret for long. I wished I could have been a part of that, but I was too young. I celebrated Passover with my mother's family, just as we do every year. We had come home and all gone to bed, but I couldn't sleep. There was an excitement in the air, no, more like an agitation, a tangible darkness I couldn't explain. Then I heard them, a chorus of men's voices coming down our street, laughing and talking, and one in particular arguing. Peter, I would recognize that voice anywhere. I put my head out of my window to listen and to watch, and in some small way to be a part of this fellowship. Jesus had apparently just told the 12 that they would all desert him. No, wait, there were 11. I remember now. I thought the group looked different. I counted, and there were only 11. I remember wondering why, who's not there, when all of a sudden my thoughts were interrupted when I heard Jesus say, "All of you will desert me tonight, just as it was written by the prophet Zechariah. I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will scatter. But when I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee."
But when I am raised up, he knew. He knew it all.
So it must be true. The woman did see him.
Yes, it is true. I saw him. I spoke with him.
Mary!
Come in.
And that is what Jesus told me to tell the disciples, that he would meet them in Galilee. When did he say this?
Oh, John Mark is telling me what happened the night Jesus was arrested. What happened next?
A deafening silence came over the group. Jesus touched a few of the men to reassure them, then turned to continue their journey. And at that moment, I believe he glanced at me, peering out of my window, inviting me to join in a journey where I too would fall short. But I can't say for sure, because all at once the night was shattered by Peter shouting, "It doesn't matter who else turns his back on you! I will never desert you!" Jesus raised a hand to silence Peter. I don't think it was to rebuke him. There was love in his voice. It was more an effort to prevent Peter from making a further fool of himself than he already had. Jesus said, "Peter, mark my words. This very night, before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But instead of quieting Peter, he got even louder. "No, teacher! Even if it means I have to die with you, I'll never deny you!" I guess the others found their courage in Peter's arrogance, because they all began saying the same thing. "I will never desert you. I will die with you." I guess I too was caught up in the moment, because I found myself following them through the streets, wrapped in only a bed sheet. I did not know where they were going, and I didn't want to take the time to dress, because I did not want to lose them. Eventually, they made their way to the Garden of Gethsemane, and when they stopped, I slipped behind an olive tree. Jesus instructed the disciples to stay and wait for him while he went to pray. But he didn't go alone. He took Peter, James, and John with him. So I thought it would be all right if I followed along, as long as I kept my distance. And as the distance between Jesus and the others grew, so did his distress. A visible sorrow like I had never seen before seemed to come over Jesus. He told the 3, "My heart is so heavy, I feel like I could die. Wait here for me and stay awake to keep watch." I felt it was only right that I too should stay behind with the disciples. But there is a voice in agony that cannot be kept silent. I heard him. I heard Jesus talk to God Almighty in a way I had never heard anyone address to Jehovah. As Jesus walked away, he seemed to crumble under the weight of his burden as he fell to the ground and prayed, "Abba, Father, I know that anything is possible for you. Please take this cup away so I don't have to drink from it. Yet whatever happens, let your will be done, not mine."
The cross. He must have been praying about the cross.
I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. Forgive me for bringing you back into this pain.
No. It helps to know that Jesus could have walked away from the cross, but he didn't. That's the key. The cross. His death. His sacrifice. His sacrifice. God's sacrifice. Yes, Jesus was God's sacrifice. He said it himself. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save that which is lost. Oh, please, go on. I need to hear it all.
Jesus got up from praying, went back to Peter, James, and John, and found them sleeping. Jesus woke them up and said, "Couldn't you stay awake and pray with me for just an hour? Stay awake and pray you aren't led into a trial of your own. For it is true, even when the spirit is willing, the body can betray it." This happened 3 times, Jesus praying for release, but surrendering to his Father's will, and returning to find the 3 asleep. The 3rd time, Jesus woke them all up and said, "The time has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up now and let's go. The one who's going to betray me is close by." He could have walked away, but he didn't. Jesus could have slipped behind a tree and left the garden unnoticed, but he didn't. That's what I expected him to do. Perhaps the disciples did too. But Jesus walked in the direction of the crowd, and Judas, the one who was missing when I saw them on the streets, Judas approached with a large group of people, agents of the chief priests, scribes, and elders in the village, armed with swords and clubs. As they arrived, Judas approached Jesus and greeted him with a customary kiss. Then Judas said, "My teacher."
How could he have done this?
Immediately, the soldiers grabbed Jesus and took him into custody.
And the disciples, did they just stand there?
Peter drew his sword and swung, cutting off the ear of a slave of Caiaphas, the high priest. Jesus reached towards the man, and in the very act of healing him, called out, "Am I a thief or a bandit that you have to come armed with swords and clubs to capture me? I sat teaching in the temple every day with you. You could have taken me at any time, but you never did. Let the scriptures be fulfilled."
Let the scriptures be fulfilled. What scriptures?
All of them. All of them. Remember, Jesus once said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." You were right. Jesus was focused on the cross for a reason, to meet the requirements of God's perfect law, to be a perfect sacrificial lamb.
The disciples fled, and so did I.
John Mark, you had no business being there in the first place.
But I wanted to be. I wanted to be one of his followers, like Peter, but I ran away.
Like Peter, like the rest of them.
I don't know that I wouldn't have done exactly the same thing. How did you get away?
Some of the people from the mob grabbed from me. A few of them caught hold of the sheet I was wearing. I managed to wiggle out of their grasp and ran out of the garden with nothing on.
Oh, my poor boy.
I left them holding the sheet. My mother's best sheet.
I, for one, am glad you are safe.
I know. But still, I had to let go of the sheet to get away from the crowd. I had to let go of what was covering me, protecting me. And as I ran, it wasn't the sheet I wanted back. It was Jesus. He was my covering, he was my protection, and I let go of him to run.
And he would forgive you. We all miss the mark. We all fall short.
Not all of us.
Oh, yes, even me. Oh. When Jesus left Nazareth to begin his ministry, to begin what I thought would be his rise to the throne of David, well, let's just say that this Jewish mother did not think he was going about it in the right way. Oh, why, once his brothers and I tracked him down to set him straight. We even thought he had gone mad. Oh, yes, I have missed the mark more than once.
And his disciples, these men who were closest to him, do you know where they are now? These men who said they'd give their life for him. These men whom Jesus told me to tell him you'd meet them in Galilee. They're locked away somewhere in the city, hiding in a tomb they've created out of their own fears, as if a locked door could keep the Roman soldiers out.
Or keep Jesus out.
What?
Or keep Jesus out. Well, you said it, or at least the rumors I hear say that you women said that Jesus' grave clothes were still there, together, not unwrapped, as if he had simply slipped out of them.
Yes, that's what we saw.
If Jesus can slip out of death, slip out of his grave clothes, and slip out of a closed tomb, he could probably slip through a locked door.
The simple faith of you.
What?
The simple faith of you. Oh, John Mark, don't lose that. Don't lose the ability to believe that anything is possible. Jesus once said, "Don't stop these children from coming to me, because unless we become as these children, we will not see the kingdom of heaven." Oh, you beautifully brilliant boy. Oh, excuse me, young man. Well, I'm going to Galilee.
What?
I'm going to Galilee.
Why?
Because that's where Jesus said to meet him, so I'm going. I hadn't remembered then what I remembered now. That Jesus said he would rise from the grave. Remember, when the Pharisees asked for a sign, He said, the only sign you will get is the sign of the prophet Jonah, who spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a great fish, as the Son of Man spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth. I hadn't remembered that till after I spoke with him. Yes. I went to the tomb with the women to finish preparing Jesus' body for burial. When I got there, I was devastated by what I saw. An open tomb, and what we feared might be an empty grave. When I looked inside, I saw a man, no, more than a man, a being, all dressed in white, as bright as light. He was just sitting there as if he were expecting us. And he said, "Do not be afraid. You came seeking Jesus of Nazareth, whom they've crucified. He's gone. He's risen. There, see the grave clothes where he once had laid." And that's when I saw it. The grave clothes still there, all wrapped together. And then he said, "Go tell Peter and the disciples that I will go before them into Galilee, just as I've said, and I will meet them there." So I ran to tell Peter and John, and then I followed them to the tomb. And by the time I got there, I had to stop. I collapsed. I was grieving and crying. My tears swelling up from a hurt so deep inside, so burst in pain. I could not stop. And when I looked up, I saw the man in white and another man sitting at the head and feet of where Jesus had once been. And he said, "Woman, why are you sobbing?" "They've taken away my Lord, and I do not know where to find him." And then I turned away, and just outside the tomb in front of me, I saw another man, but I could not make out who it was because of my tears. I thought perhaps it was the gardener, and then he also said, "Woman, why are you weeping? Who is it you're looking for?" "Sir, if you have carried away my Lord, tell me where he is that I might retrieve him." And then I heard him say my name. And I knew it was Jesus. "Oh, Rabbi!" And I ran to him. He said, "Mary, you cannot hold me, for I must rise above this world to be with my Father, who is also your Father, to be with my God, who is also your God. Go and tell all my brothers."
Do not hold him. But that is all I long to do, to wrap my arms around my son one more time.
Well, I don't think that's what he meant. Before the cross, he said that he would rise. The angels told us he had risen, and the 2 men told me once again that he was alive. But I couldn't grasp it. I did not understand that all he is and all that he had done. The only Jesus I knew was the one that had touched me, the one that had healed me, the one that I had walked with. I had heard him teach. I saw him heal. And I heard him chastise the Pharisees. And then I saw him die on that cross. All the Jesus I wanted was the one that I knew. And though he is all that, he is still much more. So much more that I could comprehend at that moment. I think perhaps that is what he was trying to tell me. "Mary, hold me to whom I once was. Don't expect me to be the same, for that which I came to accomplish is finished. All that we thought the Messiah was, he wasn't. He confounded us with being what we never expected, but whom God purposed. I think it's almost as if he used the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, the weak things to confound the strong. Consider, it wasn't the disciples, it wasn't the religious leaders, it was a small group of women. We were the first to see him alive. We were the first to see the empty tomb. We were the first to hear the good news. And we were the first to be told to go tell him to meet him in Galilee.
You want us to go to Galilee? Right now?
Well, what better time is there to meet with Jesus than right now?
You don't want to wait for the disciples.
Well, they've been told. The choice is theirs. It's a choice we must all make for ourselves. Let them stay in the room if they want to. Whether their fear or shame is holding them there, they have to make a decision for themselves to find him. Just like you. You had to let go of the world that you wrapped yourself in and you ran to him. So, I remember once I was filled with 7 demons. I had 7 voices telling me what to do, what to say, how to live. But now, I will listen to only one voice, and I will follow only one person, and that is Jesus. He said to meet him in Galilee. So, nothing stopped him from finding me, from freeing me, from forgiving me. And nothing could possibly stop me from him now. He let nothing stop him on his journey to the cross. And nothing could stop him from rising from the grave. So what could possibly stop me from meeting him now? A trip to Galilee? Or the disdain of those who refuse to believe? Or the fear of what others might think? He said to meet him in Galilee, so...
A trip to Galilee.
No, a journey to Jesus, the one who means to save.